The coffee maker gurgled behind me while I stood at the kitchen counter, staring at a text message I wasn't supposed to see. My wife's phone had buzzed on the granite countertop at exactly 6:47 in the morning. Just a notification. Just a name flashing across the locked screen. Trevor with a heart emoji next to it. The preview showed enough. Last night was amazing. When can I see you again? Miss you already. I set the phone back exactly where it had been, screen down, rotated to the precise angle Emily had left it. My hands were steady. That surprised me. 6 years of marriage, and this was the moment everything crystallized into something clear and cold and absolutely certain. This was Tuesday morning, October 15th. We'd been married 6 years and 4 months. She worked in marketing at a firm downtown, handling social media campaigns for local businesses. I fixed industrial HVAC systems for a living, crawling through ductwork and troubleshooting compressors in warehouses across 3 counties. My hands were calloused. My back hurt most mornings. I made $62,000 a year and felt grateful for it. Emily walked into the kitchen wearing her white terry cloth robe, hair still wet from the shower, leaving damp footprints on the tile floor. She smelled like vanilla body wash and expensive shampoo. She smiled that practice smile she'd been using lately, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes, the one that looked like it had been rehearsed in the bathroom mirror. "Morning," she said, reaching past me for her phone. "Morning," I replied, taking a sip of my coffee. Black, no sugar, the way I'd been drinking it since college. She glanced at the screen, and something flickered across her face. Recognition? Calculation. A micro-expression that lasted maybe half a second. Then that smile again, brighter now, more convincing. "Trevor texted," I said, keeping my voice conversational. "Your ex-boyfriend, Trevor." Emily's expression didn't change. She'd gotten good at that. "Yeah, we keep in touch sometimes. It's not a big deal. He said last night was amazing. We got drinks after work. A bunch of people from the office went out." She set her phone in her robe pocket and opened the refrigerator, acting like this was the most normal conversation in the world. Like we discussed her ex-boyfriend texting her love notes every morning over breakfast. "You were working late anyway." I had been working late. A mall installation had run past midnight, the compressor failing twice before we finally got it stable. I'd come home around 2 in the morning to find Emily already in bed or pretending to be. The bedroom had been dark, her breathing suspiciously even and regular. Now I understood why. "How long have you been texting him?" I asked. Emily turned, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed over her chest. Defensive posture. She'd taken a communications class in college that covered body language. She knew exactly what she was doing. "I don't know. A few weeks? He reached out when he moved back to town. We were together for 3 years before you and I met, so it's not like he's some stranger." 3 years, I repeated, letting the number hang in the air between us. "And now he's texting you heart emojis about amazing nights. That's just how Trevor is. He puts hearts on everything." She laughed then, a short, dismissive sound that landed in my chest like a stone. "You're not seriously jealous, are you? That's kind of pathetic." The word hung there. Pathetic. I set my coffee cup down carefully on the counter, making sure it didn't make a sound. "I'm asking you to stop talking to him." "No." The word came out flat and final, like a door slamming. "No," I said. "No. I'm not cutting ties with someone just because you're feeling insecure." Emily moved past me toward the hallway, already done with this conversation, already moving on to the next part of her carefully structured morning routine. "Trevor's my friend. I'm not going to ghost him because you have trust issues." I followed her to the bedroom doorway. She was getting dressed for work, pulling on her tailored navy blue pants, buttoning her cream-colored blouse with quick, efficient movements. Her fingers moved with the kind of practiced precision that comes from doing the same thing every single morning for years. "This isn't about trust issues," I said, keeping my voice level. "This is about respect. You're texting your ex-boyfriend, he's calling you amazing, and you're laughing at me for having a problem with it." Emily turned to face me, and there it was again. That laugh. Lighter this time, almost affectionate, like I was a child who'd said something cute and stupid and endearing. "I won't cut ties with my ex just because you say so," she said, meeting my eyes directly. There was challenge in her gaze, confidence, the absolute certainty that she'd already won this argument because she always won our arguments. She'd won them for 6 years straight. I looked at her for a long moment, at the confidence in her posture, at the certainty in her expression, at the woman I'd spent 6 years compromising for, adjusting to, making myself smaller so she could feel bigger. I'd bent myself into shapes I didn't recognize. I'd apologized for things I didn't do. I'd swallowed my pride and my anger and my self-respect until there was almost nothing left. Almost, I smiled. "Deal," I said. Emily blinked. Her confident expression faltered for just a moment. "What?" "Deal. Keep talking to Trevor. Do whatever makes you happy." She studied my face like she was trying to find the trap, searching for the hidden argument, the explosion of anger she'd been expecting. But I just kept smiling that same calm smile, the one I'd learned from watching her over 6 years of marriage. After a moment, she shrugged and went back to getting ready, dismissing me entirely. "Thank you for being reasonable," she said, applying lipstick in the mirror mounted on the closet door. Red lipstick. She never wore red lipstick to work. "I appreciate you trusting me." I left for work 20 minutes later. My phone buzzed before I even reached the highway while I was still navigating through our subdivision. A text from Rachel, Emily's coworker and supposedly her best friend. Rachel had been flirting with me at parties for the past year, always standing just a little too close, always laughing too hard at my jokes, always finding excuses to touch my arm or shoulder. Emily had never seemed to notice, or maybe she just didn't care. Maybe she'd been too busy texting Trevor to pay attention. Rachel's text said, "Drinks tonight? Just the two of us? I know this great wine bar downtown." I stared at the message for exactly 3 seconds, sitting at a red light, watching the numbers count down on the traffic signal. Then I typed, "Sure. What time?" Rachel's response came immediately. 7? I'll text you the address." I put my phone away and drove to work, and for the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. The job site that day was a warehouse in the industrial district, replacing a failed condenser unit on a rooftop. The October wind was cold up there, cutting through my work jacket, making my fingers stiff on the wrench. My partner Danny worked beside me, a 23-year-old kid fresh out of trade school who talked too much and worked too slow. "You okay, man?" Danny asked around noon when we broke for lunch. "You've been quiet all morning." "Fine," I said, unwrapping the sandwich I'd packed that morning. Turkey and cheese on wheat bread, the same sandwich I'd been eating for 6 years because Emily bought the groceries and she only bought what was on sale. "You sure? You seem pissed about something." "Just tired." Danny nodded and went back to talking about his girlfriend, some girl he'd met at a bar who worked at a dental office. I stopped listening after about 30 seconds. My mind was elsewhere, running through calculations and possibilities and consequences. Emily thought she'd won. She'd dismissed my concerns, laughed at my feelings, and walked away confident that I'd fall in line like I always did. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted. Permission to keep seeing Trevor without guilt, without argument, without consequence. She was wrong about the consequences. By the time I finished work at 5:30, I had a plan. Not a detailed plan, not step by step, just the outline of something that felt right in a way nothing had felt right in months. I stopped asking questions. That was the first thing Emily noticed. For 3 days, I came home from work, made dinner, watched television, and went to bed without once bringing up Trevor or the text messages or anything else. I didn't check her phone, didn't interrogate her about where she'd been, didn't start fights, didn't sulk or withdraw or make passive-aggressive comments. I just existed in the same space as her, calm and pleasant and utterly disinterested in whatever she was doing. The silence made her nervous. On Thursday night, she came into the living room where I was watching a basketball game and sat down on the couch beside me. The Celtics were playing the Nets. I didn't care about either team, but watching sports was easier than thinking. "You're being weird," she said. "Am I?" "You haven't said anything about Trevor since Tuesday." I kept my eyes on the screen. A three-pointer swished through the net. The announcer got excited. "You told me to drop it, so I dropped it." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Emily shifted in her seat. She wanted me to be upset. Wanted the drama, the attention, the proof that I still cared enough to fight. But I'd already decided that fighting was what losers did. And I was done losing. "I'm going out with Rachel tomorrow," I said during a commercial break. "For drinks." "Rachel?" Emily's voice went up half an octave, that little tell she had when something actually surprised her. "My Rachel?" "She invited me. I said yes." "Since when do you and Rachel hang out?" I finally looked at her. Her face was confused, suspicious, trying to work out the angles. "Since we both realized we get along pretty well. Is that a problem?" Emily's mouth opened, then closed. She was trying to figure out if this was retaliation or coincidence, and I could see the gears turning behind her eyes, calculating probabilities and responses. "No problem," she said eventually. "Have fun." But she didn't sound like she meant it. Her voice had that tight quality it got when she was angry but trying to hide it. I went back to watching the game. Emily sat beside me for another 10 minutes, fidgeting with her phone, clearly wanting to say something else. Finally, she got up and went to the bedroom without another word. I heard her talking on the phone through the closed door. Couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Upset, defensive. Probably calling Trevor, probably telling him about Rachel, probably trying to figure out if I was serious or just trying to make a point. I was absolutely serious. Friday night, I met Rachel at a bar downtown called the Copper Room. It was one of those exposed brick places with craft cocktails and dim lighting, the kind of place where young professionals went to feel sophisticated. Rachel was already there when I arrived at 7:15, sitting at a corner table in a dark green dress that probably cost more than my truck payment. Her blonde hair was down, styled in loose waves. She'd put effort into this. "You came," she said, smiling as I approached. "Said I would." "I wasn't sure you meant it." She gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Emily said you've been in a weird mood lately." "Did she?" I sat down and picked up the menu, scanning the drink options. Bourbon selections dominated the left column. "She thinks you're mad about something." "What do you think?" Rachel tilted her head, studying me with those sharp blue eyes that missed very little. "I think you finally figured out what everyone else already knows." "Which is?" "That Emily's been seeing Trevor for at least 2 months, maybe longer." I set down the menu and met her gaze. "You knew?" "Everyone knows. She's not exactly subtle." Rachel flagged down the waiter and ordered a martini. I ordered bourbon, neat. "I thought about telling you, but I figured you'd just defend her. You always do." "Not anymore." "Good. She doesn't deserve it." Rachel leaned forward with her chin on her hand. "So, what's the plan? Divorce? Confrontation? Dramatic exit?" "None of the above." "Then what?" The waiter brought our drinks. I took a sip of the bourbon, letting it burn down my throat. "I'm going to give her exactly what she wants." Rachel's eyes sparkled with the kind of excitement people get when they smell drama. "Which is?" "Freedom. Independence. The right to see whoever she wants without interference." I set down my glass. "And I'm going to do the exact same thing." Understanding dawned across Rachel's face, followed by something that looked like appreciation. "You're going to make her watch?" "Something like that." "That's brilliant." She raised her glass. "To freedom." We talked for 2 hours. About work, about weather, about movies and music, and nothing particularly important. Rachel had always been easy to talk to, probably because she spent most of her time talking about herself. She worked in the same marketing firm as Emily, but in a different department, something to do with digital analytics and SEO optimization. She made more money than Emily did, which Emily resented. She drove a nicer car, had a bigger apartment, wore better clothes, and she'd wanted me for at least a year. I'd always known that. Had felt it in the way she looked at me at parties, in the way she found excuses to be near me, in the way she'd ask Emily about me when she thought I couldn't hear. I'd ignored it because I was married, because I was faithful, because I thought that's what you did when you made a commitment. Emily had taught me that loyalty was for fools. "So," Rachel said after her second martini, leaning forward with her elbows on the table. "Are we doing this?" "Doing what?" "This. Whatever this is. Revenge, payback, a date. It's a drink between friends. Is that all you want it to be?" I looked at her, at the invitation in her expression, at the opportunity being offered. "For now." "For now," Rachel repeated, smiling slowly. "I can work with for now." We stayed until closing time. I drove her home because she'd had too much to drink, and when we got to her apartment building in the nice part of downtown where all the restaurants were, she leaned across the console and pressed her mouth to mine. It lasted maybe 5 seconds before I pulled back. "Not tonight," I said. Rachel looked surprised, then intrigued. "Why not?" "Because I'm still married." She laughed, a genuine laugh this time. "You're adorable. Most guys would have said yes." "I'm not most guys." "No," Rachel said, climbing out of the truck. "You're not." I watched her walk into her building, heels clicking on the pavement, that green dress swaying with each step. Then I drove home through empty streets, past closed businesses and dark houses, thinking about choices and consequences and the moment everything had changed. Emily was awake when I got there, sitting on the couch with her laptop open and a glass of red wine on the coffee table. She'd changed into sweatpants and an old college t-shirt, comfortable clothes, home clothes, the clothes she wore when she wasn't trying to impress anyone. "How was your night?" she asked without looking up from her screen. "Good. Rachel's fun." "She is." Emily's fingers stopped moving on the keyboard. "You two hit it off?" "We did." Emily closed her laptop slowly, setting it aside. You're not actually interested in her, are you? I hung my jacket on the hook by the door. She's attractive, smart, laughs at my jokes. She laughs at everyone's jokes. That's what Rachel does. Emily stood up, crossing her arms over her chest. You're doing this to get back at me. Get back at you for what? For Trevor. I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the anger in her jaw, the fear in her eyes. She'd expected me to collapse when she dismissed my concerns about Trevor. Expected me to beg, to plead, to prove my devotion by accepting whatever scraps of attention she felt like giving. Instead, I'd done exactly what she'd done. I'd found someone else. You said to deal with it, I reminded her. So I'm dealing with it. Emily's face went pale. By flirting with my friends? By living my life. I walked past her toward the bedroom. You wanted independence, so did I. I could feel her staring at me as I left the room, but she didn't follow, didn't argue. For the first time in 6 years, Emily had nothing to say. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to her move around in the living room. She was on her phone, probably texting Trevor, probably telling him everything that had happened, probably asking him what she should do. I didn't care what he told her. The game had changed, the rules had shifted. And for the first time since I'd seen that text message on Tuesday morning, I felt like I was the one holding all the cards. Saturday morning, I woke up early and went for a run. 5 miles through the neighborhood, past houses full of families, past parked cars and manicured lawns, and lives that looked perfect from the outside. My lungs burned, my legs ached. But my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been in months. When I got back, Emily was in the kitchen making coffee. She looked like she hadn't slept. We need to talk, she said. Okay. I don't like what's happening. What's happening? You and Rachel, this whole thing. It feels wrong. I poured myself a glass of water from the tap, drank it in 3 long swallows. How does it feel different from you and Trevor? Trevor and I aren't sleeping together. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound surprised both of us. Do you think I'm stupid? We're not. The text on Tuesday morning said last night was amazing. You stayed out until 3 in the morning 2 weeks ago when you said you were working late. You've been showering as soon as you get home from work, which you never used to do. Your car had an extra 140 miles on it last Friday that you can't account for. And yesterday I found a receipt in your purse from a hotel in the next county. Room 214, checked in at 4 p.m., checked out at 11 p.m., charged to your credit card. Emily's face went from pale to gray. You went through my purse. You left it on the counter. Receipt was sticking out. That's private. So is my marriage. Or it used to be. She stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the man she'd married had died somewhere between that text message and this moment, and she was just now noticing. I'm not humiliating you, I said. You're humiliating yourself, and now everyone knows it. I walked past her and got in the shower, letting the hot water wash away the sweat and the tension and the last remnants of the man I used to be. When I came out, Emily was gone. Her car wasn't in the driveway. She didn't come back until after midnight. I didn't ask where she'd been. I met Trevor by accident, or at least that's how it looked. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was at the hardware store picking up supplies for a job site when I saw him in the plumbing aisle. Tall, maybe 6'2", athletic build, wearing a polo shirt and expensive sunglasses pushed up on his head. He looked exactly like the type of guy Emily would have dated in college. Confident, effortlessly handsome, probably never worked a manual labor job in his life. His hands were smooth, no calluses, no scars from wrench slips or compressor springs. I walked past him once, pretending to look at pipe fittings. He was on his phone, laughing at something. His voice was smooth, practiced, the kind of voice that came from never having to work hard for anything. On my second pass, he glanced up. Hey, he said, friendly and oblivious. You know anything about replacing a shower valve? I stopped. Depends on the model. It's one of those Moen ones, temperature controls stuck. He showed me a photo on his phone. Single handle, chrome finish, standard residential installation. Could be mineral buildup. Could be the cartridge needs replacing. I pulled out my phone and showed him a parts diagram I'd saved from a previous job. You'll need a cartridge puller. They sell them here for about $15. Trevor studied the diagram, then looked at me with those friendly eyes that had absolutely no idea who I was. You a plumber? HVAC tech. But I've fixed my share of showers. Lifesaver, man. I was about to call someone and pay $200 for a service call. He extended his hand. I'm Trevor. I shook it. His grip was weak. I know. You're Emily's ex. His expression changed instantly. The friendliness evaporated, replaced by something guarded and uncomfortable. His hand pulled back like he'd touched something hot. "You're Emily's husband," he said, his voice suddenly careful. "That's right." We stood there in the plumbing aisle of a suburban hardware store on a Sunday afternoon. Two men who'd both been intimate with my wife, sizing each other up over a broken shower valve. A young couple walked past us pushing a cart full of paint supplies. The store's PA system announced a sale on power tools. Everything felt surreal. Trevor recovered first, forcing a smile that didn't reach anywhere near his eyes. "Small world," he said. "It is." I picked up a cartridge puller from the shelf, examined it like I was checking the quality. "Smaller than you think, actually." "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. Emily and I are just friends." "I know what you are." I handed him the cartridge puller. "Here, you'll need this. Match the brand to your valve. Instructions are usually printed on the package." Trevor took it, his confusion evident. He'd expected anger, maybe violence, not helpful advice about plumbing repairs. "Thanks," he said slowly. "No problem. That's what neighbors do, right? Help each other out." I started to walk away, then stopped and turned back, as if I'd just remembered something. "Oh, and Trevor, the rental company you work for, Thompson Properties, I service their HVAC systems, all 12 buildings in their portfolio." I let that hang in the air for a moment. Trevor's face went through several interesting variations of concern. "I replace air filters, check refrigerant levels, respond to tenant complaints about temperature control. You'd be surprised what you overhear when you're crawling through ductwork or working in utility closets." I smiled pleasantly. "People forget you're there. They talk about all sorts of things, personal things, professional indiscretions, inappropriate behavior." "What are you saying?" Trevor's voice had gotten tight. "I'm saying I probably know more about Thompson Properties than most people who work there. The building managers, they trust me. Call me directly when there are problems. We've worked together for 3 years. If something were to happen, like a complaint from a tenant, or an issue with a property manager, or even just a rumor about inappropriate behavior with married women, I'd probably hear about it. Probably hear about it before your supervisor did." Trevor's jaw tightened. His hand clenched around the cartridge puller hard enough that his knuckles went white. "Are you threatening me?" "Threatening you? No, I'm just making conversation, sharing information about my work. That's what people do in hardware stores, right? Help each other out, share advice, talk about their jobs." I maintained that pleasant smile. "Small world, Trevor. Small world with long memories. Have a good day. Hope you get your shower fixed." I walked away without looking back, but I could feel his eyes boring into my spine the entire way to the checkout counter. My hands were steady as I paid for my supplies. My breathing was calm, but inside, something cold and satisfied was spreading through my chest. That evening, Emily's phone rang while we were eating dinner, leftover takeout from the night before. She glanced at the screen and I saw Trevor's name flash across it. "Excuse me," she said, standing up and heading to the bedroom. I kept eating, listening to the murmur of her voice through the closed door. It started low and controlled, then gradually rose in volume and pitch. "He what?" Pause. "No, he wouldn't do that." Another pause, longer this time. "Trevor, you need to calm down. You're being paranoid." The conversation continued for another 5 minutes. When Emily came back out, her face was tight with barely contained anger and something that might have been fear. "What did you say to Trevor?" she demanded, standing in the kitchen doorway with her arms crossed. I took another bite of Kung Pao chicken, chewed slowly, swallowed. I ran into him at the hardware store, gave him some plumbing advice. His shower valve was acting up. "He said you threatened him." "Threatened him?" I helped him figure out what part he needed to buy. "He said you told him you'd sabotage his job." I set down my fork and looked at her directly. "I told him I work on his company's buildings. That's a fact, not a threat. Thompson Properties contracts me for all their HVAC maintenance. That's public information. Anyone could look that up." "You implied you'd use that connection against him?" "I didn't imply anything. I stated facts about my professional relationship with his employer." I picked up my fork again. If Trevor heard something threatening in that, maybe that says more about his guilty conscience than my intentions. Emily's hands clenched into fists. "You can't do this." "Do what? Have a conversation? Run into someone at a store? Tell them about my job?" I kept my voice calm, reasonable. "You said you wanted to keep seeing Trevor. I'm not stopping you. I haven't contacted him, haven't followed him, haven't done anything except bump into him in a public place and have a brief, polite conversation about plumbing fixtures." "Where we stood." Emily's voice was shaking now. That tremor she got when she was angry enough to cry. You basically told him you'd ruin his career if he kept seeing me. I told him I'd hear about it if there were problems with tenants. And I would. Those building managers have my cell number. They call me directly for maintenance issues. If one of Trevor's tenants started complaining about him being unprofessional or inappropriate, yes, I'd probably hear about it. That's just how it works in that business. Information travels. You're doing this on purpose. Doing what? My job? Living in the same town? Shopping at the same stores? I stood up and carried my plate to the sink. I can't control where Trevor works or where he shops. And I'm not going to change my routine just to avoid accidentally running into him. Emily stared at me like she was trying to see through my skull into my brain, trying to understand what I was really thinking. You're enjoying this. I'm accepting reality. You chose Trevor. Trevor chose you, and now we all get to live with those choices. I rinsed my plate and put it in the dishwasher. You wanted independence. Well, this is what independence looks like. Actions have consequences. People talk. Information spreads. Trevor's afraid of you now, Emily said quietly. Good. I turned to face her. He should be. Why? Why does he need to be afraid of you? Because I'm not the kind of man who shares his wife. Because I'm not the kind of man who pretends everything's fine when it's not. Because I'm not the kind of man who sits quietly while someone takes what's mine. I walked toward her, and she actually took a step back. Trevor thought he could send you heart emojis and take you to hotels and laugh about me behind my back without any consequences. He was wrong. Emily's face had gone pale. What are you going to do? Nothing. I don't have to do anything. Trevor will destroy himself. Men like him always do. They get comfortable, they get sloppy, they forget that other people are paying attention. I moved past her toward the living room. I just have to wait. Emily left the apartment 20 minutes later, grabbed her purse and her keys and walked out without saying where she was going. I watched from the window as her car pulled out of the parking lot and headed north, toward the expensive subdivision where Trevor lived. I knew exactly where she was going. She was running to tell him everything was fine, that I was just bluffing, that I'd calm down eventually and go back to being the passive husband who tolerated whatever she wanted to do. She was wrong. I pulled out my phone and opened the Thompson Properties website, found their tenant portal, found the complaint form. I didn't fill it out, didn't need to, just studied it, understanding the process, learning the system. Because Rachel was right. I was planning this. Every move, every word, every carefully planted seed of doubt and fear. And I was just getting started. Monday morning, I called Rebecca Thompson, the property manager for Thompson Properties. We'd worked together for 3 years, ever since they'd brought me on as their primary HVAC contractor. She was efficient, professional, and didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone. Her voice was brisk when she answered. Hey, Rebecca said. What's up? Everything running okay at the properties? Yeah, systems are fine. I wanted to ask you something, though. It's a little sensitive. Okay, what is it? You know Trevor Daniels, works in your leasing office? Yeah, I know Trevor. He's been with us about 18 months. Why? Is there a problem? I chose my words carefully, keeping my tone casual, concerned, but not accusatory. I ran into him yesterday at the hardware store, and he mentioned he was having some stress at work. Something about tenant relations. I just wanted to make sure everything's okay with the buildings. Sometimes tenant issues can affect HVAC complaints, so I like to stay in the loop. Tenant issues? Rebecca's voice sharpened immediately. She was the type who took building management seriously, who saw tenant satisfaction as a personal responsibility. What kind of tenant issues? He didn't go into details, just seemed worried about something. I figured if there was a problem, you'd be on top of it. Hold on. I heard typing on a keyboard, Rebecca muttering to herself as she searched through files. I don't see anything in the system about complaints against Trevor, but now I'm going to look into it more carefully. Thanks for the heads up. Sure, just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something that might affect the buildings. No, this is good you called. I'll check with the other property managers, review some tenant feedback. Better to be proactive. We hung up. I went about my day, replacing air filters and checking refrigerant levels and doing all the mundane tasks that kept commercial buildings comfortable. But I knew what was going to happen. Rebecca was thorough, meticulous, the type who followed up on every lead, who dug into every potential problem until she understood it completely. She'd start asking questions, she'd talk to building managers, she'd review tenant interactions, she'd look at Trevor's work history with fresh eyes, and somewhere in that process, she'd find something. Because men like Trevor always left a trail, always made small mistakes they thought nobody noticed. A flirtatious comment here, an inappropriate text there, a boundary crossed when they thought they could get away with it. I just had to make sure someone was looking, Rachel texted me 3 times over the next week. Coffee on Tuesday, lunch on Thursday, drinks again on Saturday. I said yes to all of it. We weren't sleeping together, weren't even particularly close to it. But we were visible, and that was the point. Rachel understood the game immediately, instinctively. She'd been waiting for an opportunity like this for a year. On Tuesday morning, we met at a coffee shop called The Daily Grind, a trendy place near Emily's office where everyone from her firm grabbed their morning caffeine. Rachel was already there when I arrived, sitting at a table by the window where anyone walking past could see us. She wore a burgundy blouse and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Professional, but approachable. "You're late," she said, smiling. "Traffic." I sat down across from her. "Did you order?" "Waiting for you. Didn't want to be rude." She waved the server over and we both ordered. She got some complicated latte with oat milk and vanilla. I got black coffee. "So," Rachel said once the server left, "how's married life?" "Complicated." "I bet." She pulled out her phone and angled it toward us. "Mind if I take a photo for social media?" "Why would you want to do that?" "Because we're friends having coffee, and I like documenting my life." Her smile widened slightly. "And because Emily checks my social media constantly, and it'll drive her crazy to see us together." I should have said no. Should have recognized that Rachel had her own agenda, her own reasons for wanting to hurt Emily. But I didn't care about her motivations. We were using each other. That was fine. "Sure," I said. She leaned in and snapped a quick photo of us at the table, coffee cups between us, both smiling. Posted it immediately with the caption, "Tuesday morning catch-up with good company." Tagged me, tagged the coffee shop, used hashtags like friendship and grateful and good people. My phone buzzed 30 seconds later. Emily calling. I declined it. "She's going to lose her mind," Rachel said, watching her phone screen. "Already got 3 likes. Give it 10 minutes and half the office will have seen this." "You really don't like her, do you?" "I really don't." Rachel set down her phone and looked at me directly. "Emily treats people like accessories, like props in her life story. She only calls me when she needs something or wants to complain about something. She borrows my clothes without asking and returns them stained or damaged. She takes credit for my ideas in meetings. And she talks behind my back. Tells other people I'm desperate or needy or trying too hard. Why do you stay friends with her? Because it's easier than making her an enemy, and because I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor." Rachel took a sip of her latte. "This is that moment." We talked for an hour, about work, about hobbies, about nothing particularly deep, but the whole time, I noticed people walking past the window, noticed them glancing in, noticed several I recognized from Emily's firm doing double takes. The message was spreading. On Thursday, we met for lunch at a Vietnamese restaurant downtown. Rachel picked the location, another place where Emily's colleagues frequently ate. She wore a black dress that probably cost $300 and heels that made her almost as tall as me. "You're really committed to this performance," I said when I saw her. "It's not a performance. I'm just dressing how I normally dress." She smiled innocently. "Is it my fault if people notice?" We ordered spring rolls and pho. The restaurant was crowded with the lunch rush. Business people in suits and casual wear, everyone talking over each other. At least 4 people I recognized from Emily's company were scattered around the dining room. "There's Jennifer from accounting," Rachel said quietly, not looking in that direction. "And Brad, from the creative department, is 2 tables behind you. They've both been staring since we sat down." "Good. You're really okay with this? With people thinking we're involved?" "Let them think whatever they want. Emily certainly is." Rachel's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and laughed. "Speaking of Emily, she just texted me asking what we're doing. What are you going to tell her?" "The truth. We're having lunch." Rachel typed out a response. "She's panicking." "Good." My phone rang. Emily again. I let it go to voicemail. "You're not going to answer her?" Rachel asked. She said she wanted independence, wanted to keep seeing Trevor without me interfering, so I'm giving her space, same as she's giving me. That's cold? I learned from her. We finished lunch, and Rachel insisted on taking another photo. This time we were standing outside the restaurant, both of us smiling at the camera. She posted it with the caption, "Best Thursday lunch in a while. Sometimes the best conversations happen over good food." Tagged me again, tagged the restaurant. The post went live, and my phone immediately buzzed with notifications, friends requesting to connect, people liking the photo, comments asking if we were dating. Rachel responded to some of the comments. Just friends enjoying each other's company, with a smiley face emoji, the kind of response that sounded innocent but implied everything. Saturday night, we went to see a movie. Some action film about spies and explosions that neither of us particularly cared about. Rachel bought tickets to the theater on the expensive side of town, the one with the reclining seats and the full bar in the lobby. "This is where Emily and I used to go together," Rachel said as we walked in. "She loves this place. Says it makes her feel sophisticated." "You're really enjoying this, aren't you?" "Maybe a little." Rachel ordered a glass of wine at the bar. I got a beer. "Is that wrong?" "No, just honest." We took our seats in the theater. The lights dimmed, previews played, and Rachel took out her phone one more time, angling it to capture both of us in our reclined seats, drinks in hand, the movie screen glowing behind us. "One more for the road," she said, snapping the photo. Posted it immediately. Saturday night done right. My phone exploded with notifications, but the one that mattered came 30 seconds later. Emily calling for the 5th time that day. This time I answered. "What?" I said. "Where are you?" Emily's voice was strained, almost frantic. "At a movie." "With Rachel?" "Yes." "Why are you doing this?" She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. "Why are you trying to humiliate me?" "I'm not trying to do anything. I'm just living my life, going out with friends. Same as you've been doing with Trevor." "It's not the same." "Why not?" "Because everyone's talking about it. My coworkers, my friends, my family. They all think we're separating. They all think you're dating Rachel." "What do you think?" Silence on the other end. Long and heavy. "I think you're doing this to hurt me," Emily said finally. "No. I'm doing this because you taught me that marriage doesn't mean anything. That vows don't matter. That respect is optional. You taught me that, Emily. I'm just a good student." "I want you to stop." "Stop what? Having friends? Going out? Living my life? You don't get to make those decisions for me anymore. You gave up that right when you chose Trevor." "I'll stop seeing him. I'll end it right now." "Too late. Please." Emily's voice broke completely. "Please stop." "I'm going to watch my movie now. Have a good night, Emily." I hung up and turned off my phone. Rachel was watching me, her expression unreadable in the darkness of the theater. That was harsh. That was necessary. "You really don't feel anything for her anymore?" I thought about the question, about 6 years of marriage, about the woman I'd loved, or thought I'd loved, about the moment she'd laughed at me in our bedroom and I'd realized she saw me as pathetic. "No," I said. "I don't feel anything at all." The movie started. Explosions filled the screen. I watched without seeing any of it. Emily's mother called me on Sunday. I was at home, doing laundry, when my phone rang. I almost didn't answer, but decided it was better to face this conversation now rather than let it fester. "Hello, Mrs. Patterson." "Don't you Mrs. Patterson me." Her voice was ice. "What the hell are you doing to my daughter?" "I'm not doing anything to your daughter. Your daughter did plenty all by herself." "Emily said you're running around town with some woman named Rachel, posting photos all over social media like some teenager." "Rachel is Emily's coworker and friend. We've been having coffee and lunch. That's all." "That's all?" Her voice rose. "You're parading around with another woman while you're still married to my daughter. Your daughter has been sleeping with her ex-boyfriend for at least 4 months. She's been lying about it, hiding it. And when I confronted her about it, she laughed at me and told me to deal with it, so I am dealing with it." Silence on the other end, long enough that I thought she might have hung up. "Emily wouldn't do that," Mrs. Patterson said finally, but her voice had lost some of its certainty. "Ask her about the hotel receipts. Ask her about Trevor Daniels. Ask her about the night she stayed out until 3 a.m, claiming she was working late on projects that don't exist. Even if that's true, 2 wrongs don't make a right. No, but one person shouldn't have to suffer silently while the other does whatever they want. Emily wanted freedom. I gave her freedom. She wanted independence. I gave her independence. She wanted to keep seeing Trevor without interference. I haven't stopped her. I've just decided to live the same way she's been living." "You're destroying your marriage." "Emily destroyed our marriage. I'm just making sure everyone sees what she did." Mrs. Patterson hung up without another word. That night, Emily came home late. After midnight, I heard her car pull in, heard her footsteps on the stairs. She came into the bedroom where I was reading and sat on the edge of the bed. "I quit my job," she said quietly. I set down my book. "What?" "I quit. Gave notice on Friday. My last day is next week." "Why would you do that?" "Because I can't work there anymore. Because Rachel told everyone about us. About you and her. About me and Trevor. She showed people the photos. Made it sound like we were all in some kind of twisted situation. Emily's voice was shaking. My boss pulled me aside and suggested I might want to take some personal time to sort things out. Said it was affecting my work, affecting team morale, so I quit. I stared at her. Rachel told them? She told everyone, made a big presentation in a meeting about how social media relationships can impact professional ones, used us as an example, showed your photos together, showed text from Trevor to me that she somehow got access to. Emily looked at me with red, swollen eyes. She destroyed me, and you helped her do it. I didn't tell her to do any of that. You didn't have to. She figured out what you wanted and did it for you. Emily stood up, swaying slightly. She'd been drinking. You're destroying my life. No, you destroyed your life when you chose to cheat on me, when you lied about it, when you laughed at me for caring. You destroyed your life. I'm just making sure everyone sees what kind of person you really are. Emily walked toward me, and for a moment I thought she might actually try to hit me. But she just stood there, close enough that I could smell the wine on her breath and the perfume she'd worn to wherever she'd been. I hate you, she whispered. Good. Now you know how it feels. She turned and left the bedroom. I heard her collapse onto the couch, heard her sobbing, heard her talking on the phone in hushed, desperate tones. I went back to reading my book and felt absolutely nothing. Trevor's car was a silver Audi A4, lease probably, with a custom license plate that said TRVR88. He parked it in the same spot every day at his apartment complex, a 3-story building in the suburb where all the young professionals lived with names like The Modern or Urban Heights. His building was called Riverside Towers, though there was no river nearby, and calling it a tower was generous. I knew this because I'd driven past it 17 times over the last 2 weeks. Not stalking, just observing, learning patterns, understanding routines. Trevor left for work at 7:30 every morning, came home around 6, sometimes left again around 8, probably heading to bars or restaurants or Emily's apartment. Sometimes stayed in all night. I could see his windows from the parking lot. 3rd floor, corner unit. Lights on meant he was home. Lights off meant he was gone. The building had a gym on the 1st floor that I could see through large windows. Trevor used it sometimes, running on the treadmill or lifting weights with the kind of form that suggested he cared more about appearance than actual fitness. The complex had a pool that was closed for the season. Individual garages were available for premium units, but Trevor didn't have one. He parked in the regular lot under a maple tree that dropped leaves on his windshield. On Tuesday night, the first week of November, I parked my truck 2 blocks away and walked to Trevor's complex with a tire pressure gauge in my pocket, the kind with a release valve. I'd bought it at the same hardware store where we'd met, which felt appropriate somehow. Poetic, even. The parking lot was mostly empty, 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. Most residents were inside, watching television or getting ready for bed. Security was minimal. No cameras pointed at this particular section of the lot. I'd checked on previous visits, noting the blind spots, understanding the layout. I found Trevor's Audi exactly where it always was, tucked into a corner spot under that maple tree. The license plate caught the streetlight. TRVR88. I wondered what significance the number held. Birth year? Lucky number? Just something that sounded cool? I crouched beside the driver's side front tire and pressed the gauge against the valve stem. Air hissed out, quiet and steady. 15 seconds and the tire went from 35 psi to 0. The car settled slightly as the tire deflated. I moved to the back tire, same process. Then crossed to the passenger side. Front tire, then back. 4 flat tires in under 2 minutes. I didn't slash them, didn't damage anything permanent, didn't touch the car's body or windows, just let the air out. Simple, reversible. But time-consuming and frustrating for anyone who discovered it. Trevor would find them in the morning. He'd call roadside assistance, waste 3 hours getting them refilled. He'd check for punctures, find none. He'd be confused, then paranoid, then angry. He'd spend the whole day wondering who'd done it and why. He'd know, though. Deep down, he'd know. I walked back to my truck and drove home. Emily was asleep when I got there, or pretending to be. I didn't check, just went to bed and slept better than I had in weeks. Trevor called Emily the next morning. I was in the shower when her phone rang, but I heard her answer it in the bedroom. Heard her voice rise in concern. What? Are you serious? Pause. All 4 tires? Another pause. No, I don't know who would do that. When I came out, towel around my waist, Emily was sitting on the edge of the bed with her phone in her hand and an accusing look on her face. Trevor's tires were vandalized last night, she said. That's unfortunate. All 4 of them. Someone let all the air out. Kids, probably. Happens sometimes in apartment complexes. He thinks you did it. I pulled on my work clothes. Jeans, company polo shirt, steel-toed boots. Why would I do that? To scare him, to send a message. If I wanted to send Trevor a message, I'd just talk to him. I don't sneak around in parking lots letting air out of tires. That's childish. I tied my boots. Did he call the police? No. Why not? If he really thinks someone vandalized his car, he should file a report. Get it on record. That's what insurance companies want. Emily didn't have an answer for that, because she knew the same thing I knew. Trevor couldn't call the police, couldn't make this official, because he had no proof, and filing a false report could backfire if it came out. He was sleeping with a married woman, and her husband worked on his company's properties. Just leave him alone, Emily said quietly. I am leaving him alone. I haven't contacted him, haven't gone near him, haven't done anything except live my life. I grabbed my work bag and headed for the door. If Trevor's paranoid, that's his problem, not mine. On Thursday, I got a call from Rebecca Thompson, the property manager, 2 days after the tire incident. Perfect timing. Hey, Rebecca said when I answered. I need to talk to you about something sensitive. What's up? Remember when you mentioned Trevor might be having some issues? You were right to bring it up. I pulled over into a gas station parking lot. This conversation deserved my full attention. What happened? One of the tenants in Building 7 filed a formal complaint yesterday. A woman named Jessica Palmer. She said Trevor was inappropriate during an apartment showing about 3 weeks ago. Made comments about her appearance, stood too close, asked personal questions that had nothing to do with the lease. She felt uncomfortable enough that she almost walked out of the showing. That's definitely concerning. It gets worse. Jessica said Trevor sent her a follow-up text after the showing, asking if she wanted to grab drinks sometime, completely unprofessional. She has the text message saved. Did she end up leasing the apartment? No. She went with a different property specifically because of Trevor's behavior, which means we lost a tenant because of his conduct. Rebecca's voice had that clipped quality she got when she was angry, but staying professional. And here's the thing. This isn't the first time. We had a similar complaint 6 months ago from a different woman, but we couldn't verify it, so we let it slide with a verbal warning. Trevor claimed it was a misunderstanding, that he was just being friendly. But now you have proof. Now we have proof. Text messages, dated records, a detailed account of the interaction. Corporate is taking this very seriously. We're putting him on formal probation, effective immediately. Mandatory HR training, supervision during all tenant interactions, the works. And I wanted to give you a heads up because I know you're in the buildings a lot. I appreciate that. If you hear anything else, anything at all, I need you to let me know. Corporate's already talking about termination if there's another incident. We can't have employees making tenants uncomfortable. It's a liability issue. Of course, I'll keep my ears open. Thanks. I knew I could count on you. You've always been solid with us. We hung up. I sat in my truck in that gas station parking lot staring at my phone. I hadn't done anything, hadn't filed the complaint, hadn't contacted Jessica Palmer, hadn't planted any evidence or manufactured any accusations. Trevor had done this to himself months ago, probably years ago, building a history of small, inappropriate moments that nobody had bothered to document. I'd just made sure the right people were paying attention. Just asked a few questions that prompted Rebecca to look closer. The rest was all Trevor's own doing. Men like him always left a trail. Emily found out about Trevor's probation on Friday evening. She came home early, which was unusual since she'd supposedly quit her job. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking when she cornered me in the kitchen. Did you do something to Trevor? She asked without preamble. Like what? He's in trouble at work. A tenant complained about him, said he was inappropriate during an apartment showing. He's been put on probation. And you think I made that happen? I don't know. Did you? I was making dinner. Chicken breast on the stove, rice in the cooker, frozen broccoli in the microwave. Simple, efficient, nutritious. No, I didn't file any complaint. Didn't contact any tenant. Didn't do anything except my job. Trevor said someone's been following him, leaving notes on his car, letting the air out of his tires, calling his office with anonymous complaints. Sounds like Trevor's made some enemies. Don't play dumb. He thinks it's you. Trevor can think whatever he wants. I flipped the chicken breast. But unless he has proof, he's just making accusations. And paranoid accusations at work probably aren't helping his situation. Emily's voice cracked. He's going to lose his job. Then he should have been more professional with tenants. You don't understand. Trevor needs this job. He's got student loans, car payments, rent. He can't afford to start over. If he loses this position, he'll have to move back in with his parents in another state. Should have thought of that before he made female tenants uncomfortable. Should have thought of that before he sent inappropriate text messages to women who were just trying to find apartments. I turned off the stove and plated the chicken. Should have thought of that before he started sleeping with someone else's wife. Emily flinched like I'd struck her. We're not sleeping together anymore. I told you. I ended it. After you dropped me off at that event, after Rachel told everyone, after everything fell apart, I ended it. When exactly did you end it? Last week. I called him and told him we couldn't see each other anymore, that it was wrong, that I needed to try to fix my marriage. Did he agree? He was upset, but yes, he understood. And yet you're here defending him, worried about his job, concerned about his future. Because I care about him. We were together for 3 years before you and I even met. That doesn't just disappear because we broke up. I looked at her, really looked at her, at the desperation in her eyes, at the way she was pleading for Trevor, defending Trevor, prioritizing Trevor even after claiming she'd ended things. Get out, I said quietly. What? Get out of my kitchen. Go to your room. Go to a friend's house. Go anywhere. Just get away from me right now. This is my apartment, too. No, this is my apartment. My name on the lease. My money paying the bills. You live here because I let you, and right now I don't want you here. Emily backed away slowly, tears streaming down her face. She grabbed her purse and her keys and left without another word. I ate dinner alone, listening to the silence, and felt nothing but a cold satisfaction spreading through my chest. That night, I received an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line said, "You're welcome." I opened it. I found 3 other women who had similar experiences with Trevor, all within the past year, all at Thompson Properties. None of them filed complaints because they thought nobody would believe them or because they didn't want the hassle. I reached out to all of them, gave them the complaint forms, explained their rights. 2 of them are filing formal complaints this week. Trevor's not just looking at probation anymore. He's looking at termination and possibly legal action if these women decide to pursue it. Thought you should know. R. Rachel. Of course. I should have been surprised, but I wasn't. Rachel had made her intentions clear from the beginning. She wanted to help me hurt Emily, and hurting Trevor was part of that equation. I typed back, "Why are you doing this?" Her response came 5 minutes later. Because Emily deserves it. Because Trevor deserves it. Because people who hurt others should face consequences, and because you needed help but wouldn't ask for it. I didn't ask you to do any of this. I know, that's why I did it anyway. Friends help friends, even when they don't ask. I stared at the screen for a long time, trying to decide how I felt about Rachel's interference. Grateful, angry, concerned. Mostly I felt nothing, just that same cold satisfaction. "Thank you," I typed. "You're welcome. Let me know if you need anything else." I deleted the email thread and went to bed. Tomorrow was Saturday. I had a job site inspection in the morning. Life continued, indifferent to the small dramas of people like Trevor and Emily and me. The call came on Monday morning, November 11th. I was on a job site replacing a fan motor in a restaurant kitchen that smelled like grease and bleach when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number, local area code. I almost didn't answer, figuring it was a spam call or a wrong number. "Hello? Is this Emily's husband?" A woman's voice, young, uncertain, nervous. I set down my wrench and walked out of the kitchen into the dining area where it was quieter. "Who's asking?" "My name is Jessica Palmer. I'm a tenant, or I was going to be a tenant, at one of Trevor Daniels' buildings. Building 7 at Thompson Properties. I filed the complaint against him last week." My chest tightened. I leaned against a booth and kept my voice neutral. "Okay. I need to tell you something. The complaint I filed, the text messages I provided, the account of Trevor being inappropriate during the showing, everything I reported was completely true. Trevor really did make me uncomfortable. He really did stand too close and make comments about my appearance. He really did send me that text asking me out for drinks. All of that happened exactly as I described it." "Okay," I said again, not sure where this was going. "But the reason I filed the complaint now, instead of 3 weeks ago when it first happened, is because someone contacted me. Someone I don't know. They sent me an anonymous email encouraging me to report Trevor's behavior." The restaurant suddenly felt very cold. "Who contacted you?" "I don't know. The email came from a generic address that looked like random letters and numbers. But whoever sent it knew things about Trevor. Specific things. They knew about his history with other women. They knew about inappropriate interactions he'd had with other tenants. They knew about his relationship with a married woman." Jessica paused. "They knew about you." "What exactly did they say?" "They said Trevor had a pattern of inappropriate behavior with women. that he'd made multiple tenants uncomfortable, but nobody had reported it because they didn't think anyone would believe them or take them seriously. They said if I didn't report what happened to me, Trevor would just keep doing it to other women, and they were right. After I filed my complaint, 2 other women came forward with similar stories. Why are you calling me? Because the email also mentioned you specifically. It said you were married to someone Trevor was involved with. It said you deserved to know what kind of man your wife was seeing. It said you should know that Trevor had a history of crossing boundaries and making women uncomfortable. Jessica's voice dropped lower. I'm calling because I wanted you to know that someone out there is helping you. Someone who has access to a lot of information about Trevor and about your situation. And you don't know who it is? No. I tried replying to the email, but it bounced back. I tried tracing the IP address, but it was routed through multiple proxies. Whoever sent it knows how to stay anonymous. Why are you telling me this? Because it felt wrong not to. Because if someone's manipulating things behind the scenes, even for a good reason, you should know about it. Jessica sighed. Look, I don't regret filing the complaint. Trevor really was inappropriate with me, and apparently he's been inappropriate with other women too. He deserves to face consequences. But I thought you should know that someone pushed me to do it, someone with an agenda. Thank you for calling, I said. I appreciate your honesty. I hope things work out for you. I'm sorry you're going through whatever you're going through. We hung up. I stood in the empty restaurant, surrounded by tables and chairs, staring at my phone. Someone had sent that email to Jessica. Someone who knew about Trevor's history with women, someone who knew about his relationship with Emily, someone who had the technical skills to hide their identity. It took me exactly 30 seconds to figure out who. I called Rachel from the parking lot. Did you contact Trevor's tenants? I asked as soon as she answered. Well, hello to you too. How's your Monday going? Rachel, did you contact Jessica Palmer and tell her to file a complaint against Trevor? Silence on the other end, long enough that I knew I was right. Yes, she said finally. I did. Why? Because Emily's been lying to you for months, and Trevor's a creep who makes women uncomfortable, and I figured you could use some help moving things along. Rachel's voice was calm, matter-of-fact, like she was discussing the weather or weekend plans. I work in digital analytics, remember? SEO optimization, data mining, social media tracking. I know how to find people online. I know how to gather information. I know how to reach out anonymously when needed. You should have told me. Would you have let me do it if I'd asked permission? I didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right. If Rachel had asked me before contacting Jessica, I would have said no. Would have told her it was too risky, too obvious, too much. You're welcome, by the way, Rachel continued. Trevor's on probation now. Emily's freaking out. And you're one step closer to getting what you want. What we both want. What do I want? Revenge, justice. Whatever you want to call it. Don't pretend you're some kind of saint who's just defending himself. You've been planning this since the day Emily laughed at you in your bedroom, since she dismissed your feelings and chose Trevor over your marriage. I just helped speed things up. She was right. I had been planning it. Every interaction with Trevor, every date with Rachel, every flat tire and phone call and anonymous complaint. I'd orchestrated all of it, or set the conditions for it to happen naturally. But I'd convinced myself I was just reacting, just defending myself, just making sure Emily and Trevor faced natural consequences for their choices. Rachel had seen through that immediately, had recognized what I was doing and decided to help without asking. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because I like you. Because you're genuine in a way most people aren't. Because you were loyal to Emily even when she didn't deserve it. Rachel paused. And because Emily's always treated me like her backup friend, the one she only calls when she needs something or wants to complain. She borrows my things without asking, takes credit for my work, makes jokes about my personal life in front of other people. I'm tired of being second place to Emily, tired of watching her use people and discard them when they're no longer useful. So this is revenge for you too. Maybe, or maybe it's justice. Or maybe it's just me helping a friend who needed help but was too proud or too moral to ask for it. Her voice softened slightly. Either way, you're going to finish this, right? You're not going to stop now that you know I've been helping? I thought about Emily crying on the couch, about Trevor losing his job, about all the careful dominoes I'd set up and watched fall one by one. No, I said, I'm not going to stop. Good, because there's more. More? 2 more women are filing complaints against Trevor this week, both tenants at Thompson Properties, both with similar stories about inappropriate behavior. Between Jessica's complaint and these 2 new ones, Trevor's not just looking at probation, he's looking at termination, maybe legal action if these women decide to pursue it. You contacted them too. I found them through tenant review sites and social media. They'd left comments about uncomfortable interactions with leasing agents at Thompson Properties. I reached out privately, explained their rights, provided the complaint forms. They made their own decisions about whether to file. This could destroy his career. Trevor destroyed his own career by being exactly who he is. I just made sure people were paying attention. Rachel's voice hardened. Men like him count on women staying quiet, count on victims being too embarrassed or too afraid to report what happened. I just removed those barriers. The rest is on him. We talked for another 10 minutes. Rachel explained her methods, her research, her approach to finding and contacting Trevor's other victims. It was thorough, methodical, and completely untraceable. She'd used VPNs, anonymous email accounts, and careful language that encouraged without coercing. When we hung up, I sat in my truck for a long time, staring out at the parking lot. I should have been angry at Rachel for interfering, should have been concerned about the legal implications of what she'd done, should have been worried about getting caught. Instead, I just felt that same cold satisfaction spreading through my chest. Trevor was finished. Emily's life was falling apart, and I was exactly where I wanted to be, in control, finally. The final confrontation happened on a Wednesday, November 20th. Emily had been distant for days, barely speaking, barely eating, existing in a kind of suspended limbo. She stayed in the apartment most of the time, applying for jobs online, scrolling through her phone with glazed eyes, moving through the space like a ghost. She knew something was coming, could feel it in the air the way animals sense earthquakes before they happen. I waited until she got home from a job interview, some marketing position at a smaller firm across town, a significant step down from her previous role. She walked into the apartment carrying her purse and her portfolio, wearing a navy blue pantsuit I'd never seen before. Probably bought it with money from her savings, since I'd stopped giving her access to our joint account last week. She froze when she saw me sitting at the kitchen table with her phone in my hand. "That's mine," she said, her voice tight. "I know. Give it back. In a minute." I'd taken it while she was in the shower that morning, before she left for the interview. She'd left it charging on the bathroom counter, unlocked, carelessly accessible. I'd guessed her passcode weeks ago anyway, her birth year, the same 4 digits she used for everything. Predictable, like so much about her. I pulled up her text messages with Trevor. The recent ones were frantic, desperate. Trevor telling her he couldn't see her anymore, that his job was on the line, that someone was targeting him and he needed to lay low. Emily begging him to stay, to fight, to not abandon her now when she needed him most. The older messages were worse, much worse, explicit, detailed, plans for hotel meetings and elaborate lies to cover them. Trevor sending photos I didn't want to see but forced myself to look at anyway. Emily responding with messages that made it clear this had been going on for at least 4 months, maybe longer, since July or August, based on the timestamps. I read them aloud, every single one. The explicit messages describing what they'd done together, the lies about where she was and who she was with, the jokes about me, about how oblivious I was, how easy it was to fool me, Trevor calling me the husband like I was a punchline in a comedy routine, Emily laughing about how I believed everything she told me, how I never questioned her, how pathetic my trust was. Emily stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, mascara running in dark tracks down her cheeks, and she didn't say a word. Didn't defend herself, didn't interrupt, didn't try to grab the phone or stop me. Just listened to her own words coming back to her, reflected in my voice, amplified by the silence of the apartment. When I finished reading the last message, dated just 10 days ago, I set the phone on the table carefully. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, keeping my voice calm and level. "You're going to leave, tonight, right now. You're going to pack your things and go stay with your mother or Rachel or whoever will take you, and you're not coming back." "This is my apartment too," Emily said weakly, her voice barely above a whisper. "No, it's not." I pulled out a folder I'd prepared that afternoon. Lease agreement with only my name on it. Utility bills in my name, bank statements showing I'd been paying rent, electricity, water, internet, everything for 6 years straight. Everything's in my name. The lease, the utilities, everything. You have no legal claim to this apartment. I checked with a lawyer. Her face went from pale to white. "You talked to a lawyer?" "Last week. Wanted to make sure I understood my options." I pushed the folder across the table toward her. "Look for yourself if you don't believe me. This apartment is mine. You're here because I allowed you to be here, and now I'm revoking that permission. You can't just kick me out. Actually, I can. You're not on the lease. You haven't paid rent. Legally, you're my guest, and I'm asking you to leave. If you refuse, I can call the police and have you escorted out. I'd prefer not to do that, but I will if necessary." Emily collapsed onto the couch, her whole body shaking with sobs. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I'll do anything to fix this. Please. You made a lot of mistakes, and it's too late to fix them. We can go to counseling, marriage therapy, work through this together. I don't want to work through anything with you. I love you. She looked up at me with those red, swollen eyes. I still love you. I walked to the bedroom without responding, pulled her suitcase out of the closet, the same one she'd taken on our honeymoon 6 years ago to Hawaii, set it on the bed and started packing her clothes methodically. Shirts, pants, dresses, shoes, everything that was hers, everything I didn't want in my space anymore. Emily followed me, pleading with every step. Please, we can fix this. I'll stop seeing Trevor. I already stopped. I told you I stopped weeks ago. I'll be better. I'll be the wife you deserve. I promise. I don't want anything from you. I packed her toiletries from the bathroom. Toothbrush, shampoo, makeup. I don't want your promises. I don't want your apologies. I don't want you. I made a mistake. One mistake. 4 months of lying isn't one mistake. It's a choice. It's a pattern. It's who you are. I zipped the suitcase closed. You chose Trevor over our marriage. You chose lies over honesty. You chose your own pleasure over any respect for me or our vows. Those weren't mistakes. Those were decisions. Emily reached for me, but I stepped back, putting the bed between us. Don't, I said firmly. She dropped her hand, staring at me like she was trying to memorize my face, trying to find some trace of the man she'd married who would have forgiven her, who would have taken her back, who would have swallowed his pride to keep the peace. That man was gone. What about Trevor? She asked quietly, desperately grasping for something. Are you going to destroy him too? Trevor's already destroyed. His probation's going to turn into termination because 2 more women filed complaints against him this week. Apparently making tenants uncomfortable is a pattern for him, not an isolated incident. When he loses his job, when he can't make his car payment or his rent, he'll have to move back in with his parents in whatever small town he came from. He'll blame you for all of it. He'll tell everyone you ruined his life. You did this. You destroyed him. No. Trevor destroyed himself by being exactly who he is. A man who doesn't respect boundaries. A man who makes women uncomfortable. A man who sleeps with other men's wives and laughs about it. I picked up her suitcase and carried it toward the door. I just made sure people noticed. Same with you. I didn't make you cheat. I didn't make you lie. I didn't make you laugh at me when I asked you to respect our marriage. You did all of that yourself. I just stopped pretending it didn't matter. I set the suitcase by the front door. Emily followed slowly, moving like she was underwater, like gravity had doubled. Where am I supposed to go? She asked, her voice breaking completely. I don't care. Your mother's house, a hotel, a friend's apartment. That's your problem now, not mine. Rachel won't help me. She hates me. She's the one who told everyone at work about us. She's the one who destroyed my career. Then I guess you should have been a better friend to her, should have treated her with more respect, should have thought about consequences before you used people. I opened the front door. Cold November air rushed in. Everyone you've hurt is done with you, Emily. Your coworkers don't trust you. Your friends don't want to be associated with you. Even Trevor doesn't want you anymore. You burned every bridge you had. Emily stood in the doorway for a long moment, one hand on the frame, and I could see her brain working frantically, trying to find some argument, some angle, some way to turn this around, some way to make me the villain instead of acknowledging what she'd done. But there was nothing left. No leverage, no power, no control. I hate you, she said finally, her voice barely audible. Good. Now you know how it feels to be dismissed, to be laughed at, to be treated like you don't matter. I met her eyes directly. Now you know exactly how I felt when you chose Trevor over me. She picked up her suitcase with shaking hands and walked out into the hallway. I closed the door behind her and locked it. The deadbolt, the chain, every lock I had. Then I stood in the silence of the empty apartment and listened to the sound of her footsteps fading away down the corridor, down the stairs, out of my life. My phone buzzed an hour later. A text from Rachel. Is it done? I typed back. It's done. How do you feel? I stared at the question for a long time, trying to identify what was happening in my chest. Empty, satisfied, vindicated, hollow, all of those things and none of them. I don't know, I typed honestly. Want to talk about it? Not really. Fair enough, I'm here if you change your mind. Proud of you for following through. I didn't respond. Just set my phone down and looked around the apartment. It looked bigger now, emptier. Emily's things were gone. her photos removed from the walls, her books cleared from the shelves, her presence erased as thoroughly as I could manage in a few hours. The apartment was mine again, completely mine. No shared space, no compromise, no accommodation. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it just felt like silence. 3 days later, I ran into Trevor at the grocery store. I was in the produce section, picking through apples at 9 p.m. on a Saturday night, when I saw him 2 aisles over near the deli counter. He looked terrible. Hollow-eyed, unshaven, wearing a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans that hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he wasn't sleeping. He saw me at the same moment I saw him, froze. For a second, I thought he might run, might turn and walk quickly in the other direction like a scared animal. But he didn't. He walked toward me instead, slowly, cautiously, like he was approaching something dangerous that might strike without warning. I kept picking through apples, ignoring him, examining each one for bruises and soft spots. "Wait," Trevor said when I started to walk away with my selections. I stopped, turned to face him. Trevor approached until he was about 6 feet away, maintaining distance, keeping his hands visible at his sides. His voice was shaking when he spoke. "Emily's gone." "I know." "She's staying with her mother, 3 hours away. Won't answer my calls, won't respond to my texts, says we're done, says she never wants to see me again. That's not my problem. You did this." Trevor's voice rose slightly. Other shoppers glanced over. "You sabotaged my job. You turned her against me. You destroyed everything I had, my career, my relationship, my reputation, everything." I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who'd been sending heart emojis to my wife, the man who'd taken her to hotels while I worked late shifts, the man who'd laughed about me, called me the husband, treated my marriage like a joke. "No," I said calmly. "You did this. You knew Emily was married. You knew what you were doing. You knew there would be consequences eventually. And you did it anyway because you thought you'd get away with it. Because men like you always think you'll get away with it. I loved her. You loved the idea of taking something that wasn't yours. You loved the excitement of doing something forbidden. You loved feeling powerful because a woman chose you over her husband." I set my apples in my cart. "That's not love. That's just ego." Trevor's hands clenched into fists at his sides, but he was smart enough not to swing. Smart enough to know that starting a fight in a grocery store would just be one more mistake in a long line of mistakes. "I hope you're happy." "I'm not happy, but I'm done, and that's enough." I walked away without waiting for a response. Finished my shopping, paid for my groceries, drove home through empty streets. When I got back to the apartment, I unpacked the groceries methodically, put everything away in its place, made a sandwich, sat on the couch in the silence. My phone buzzed. Email notification. From Emily. No subject line. Just 3 words in the body. "I'm sorry, okay?" I deleted it without responding. She sent another one the next day. "Can we at least talk? Please? I need to get some of my things." I packed the rest of her belongings in cardboard boxes. Old books she'd left on the shelves, DVDs from before we had streaming services, random items from the back of closets, left them in the hallway outside the apartment with a note taped to the top box. "Everything's here. Don't come back." She picked them up that night while I was at work. I came home to empty space where the boxes had been. On the 3rd day, she sent, "I know you hate me, but can we please talk about this like adults?" I blocked her email address. Rachel called me on Friday night of the following week, asked if I wanted to get dinner. I said no. She called again on Sunday, asked if I was okay. I said yes. On Tuesday evening, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, holding a bottle of wine and wearing that same dark green dress she'd worn on our first night at the Copper Room. The one that had started all of this. "You're avoiding me," she said when I opened the door. "I'm busy." "With what?" "Sitting in the dark, feeling sorry for yourself." "Because that's what it looks like." I didn't answer. Rachel pushed past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation, set the wine on the counter, looked around at the bare walls, the empty spaces, the apartment that looked more like a hotel room than a home. "You got what you wanted," she said, pulling 2 wine glasses from my cabinet without asking. "Emily's gone. Trevor's probably going to lose his job permanently. You won, so why do you look miserable?" "It doesn't feel like winning." "It never does." Rachel poured 2 glasses of wine with practiced efficiency, handed me one. "Winning never feels as good as you think it will while you're fighting for it. That's what nobody tells you, but that doesn't mean it wasn't worth it, doesn't mean you shouldn't have done it." I took the glass but didn't drink, just held it, feeling the weight of it in my hand, the coolness of the glass against my palm. "What happens now?" Rachel asked, sitting on my couch like she belonged there. "I don't know." "Do you want me to leave?" I looked at her, at the hope in her eyes that she was trying to hide behind casual confidence, at the calculation behind the hope, the assessment of whether I might finally be ready to move forward with her, at the woman who'd helped me destroy my wife's life because she wanted to destroy Emily too. We'd both gotten what we wanted, both achieved our revenge, both proven that we could hurt the people who'd hurt us. But that didn't mean I wanted her here, didn't mean I wanted to replace Emily with Rachel and repeat the same cycle with someone new. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I do want you to leave." Rachel's expression didn't change. No surprise, no hurt, no anger, just acceptance. She'd known this was coming, had probably known from the beginning that I was using her as much as she was using me. She set down her wineglass carefully on the coffee table and walked to the door without argument. "You know where to find me," she said, pausing in the doorway, "if you ever change your mind." Then she was gone. I stood in my apartment alone, holding a glass of wine I didn't want, staring at a life I didn't recognize anymore. Emily had laughed at me, dismissed my feelings, chosen another man over our marriage, so I'd systematically destroyed her life, her job, her reputation, her relationships, her sense of safety and control. Trevor had taken what was mine, treated my marriage like a game, laughed about me behind my back, so I'd taken everything from him, his job, his relationship, his future prospects, his peace of mind. Rachel had helped me do all of it, had provided information and resources and support, had executed parts of my revenge that I wouldn't have done myself, so I'd used her and then discarded her the moment she'd served her purpose. And now I was exactly what I'd set out to become, free, powerful, alone. I walked to the window and looked out at the parking lot 3 floors below. Emily's car was gone. Trevor's life was in ruins somewhere across town. Rachel had moved on to whatever came next for her, and I was still here, still standing, still breathing, still empty. The person I was when all this started, the person who loved Emily and trusted her and believed in marriage, that person is gone. The man I'd become, the one standing in this apartment surrounded by silence and empty walls, I didn't know him yet, didn't know if I liked him, didn't know if he was better or worse than who I'd been before. I only knew he was necessary to survive what Emily had done, necessary to extract revenge for the humiliation and betrayal, necessary to prove that I wouldn't be the victim in this story. I smiled at my reflection in the dark window, not because I was happy, not because I felt victorious, but because I'd finally become exactly what I needed to become to win this war. Someone who didn't feel anything at all. Someone who could destroy without remorse. Someone who could stand in the wreckage of 6 years of marriage and feel nothing but cold satisfaction. The apartment was silent around me. No Emily moving around in the bedroom, no television playing in the background, no sounds of another person sharing my space. Just me, just silence. Just the knowledge that I'd won, even if winning felt exactly like losing. I raised the wineglass in a solitary toast to the empty apartment, to revenge, to justice, to consequences, to becoming the villain in someone else's story because they'd made me the victim in mine. I drank the wine in one long swallow and felt it burn all the way down,